Howdy folks, Hauer 4x4 coming at you again, your resident vintage gamer. And today we're going to talk about the movies. We're going to talk about a lot of the upcoming movies that we saw trailers for at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. I guess I don't have to say San Diego anymore, they won the lawsuit. So if you don't know the story behind that, you can Google. There was a lawsuit between San Diego Comic-Con and Salt Lake Comic-Con, which started since I've lived here. There was a huge lawsuit over the term Comic-Con, and San Diego won. So Salt Lake cannot call itself that anymore. They have to call it Salt Lake Fan Experience. You can Google that, look at the rest of the details about all that. So going forward, I guess I don't have to say San Diego anymore. I can just say Comic-Con because that means San Diego. So anyway, there was a lot of stuff that they showed at Comic-Con about upcoming movies and TV series and all that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the ones that I am most looking forward to and why, and some of those that I'm not looking forward to and why. In addition, as the video's title would suggest, we lost Rutger Hauer, I guess a couple days ago, but it was just hitting the news today or something like that. And for most of you do know that he was one of the stars of the original Blade Runner. And, of course, he'd done a lot of other science fiction, fantasy movies and stuff like that, and TV shows and all that. And I do have a Rutger Hauer story from my time working at Universal Studios. But I'll save that to the end, and we'll just tease that for now. So, let's talk about the movies that are going to be coming up. And the reason that I'm doing this video is twofold. Number one, I really do want to talk with you guys, and when I say that, I mean I read all the comments, and I want to see which ones really got you guys excited, which ones kind of look like duds to you, etc. I like to see all that feedback. But also, the other thing, number two, is that once again, and I've talked about this previously, about once a year I have to talk about this. I always feel overwhelmed when it comes to content in the nerd geek culture milieu. Such as, we have all these movies coming out, TV shows, there's always books coming out that need to be read. There's new content for tabletop roleplay, new adventures for Dungeons and Dragons that need to be read. There's Kickstarter stuff that, needs to be consumed. There are conventions that need to be gone to. There is new music that needs to be listened to. There's new series and stuff on streaming services that need to be watched. And it seems to me, I get overwhelmed because I want to consume all this stuff. I want to be up on all of the nerd geek culture stuff. I want to watch all the series. I want to see all the movies. I want to read all the books and the gaming content. And then, that isn't even talking about video games. That isn't even talking about Baldur's Gate 3 coming out. And I've got to go back. I've already finished replaying Baldur's Gate 1, and now I got to do Baldur's Gate 2 before the third one comes out, just to refresh my memory and everything and get me all juiced up and ready for number 3. So that's just one franchise. There's many others, of course, and it always makes me, it bewilders me how so many people that I follow on Twitter, Instagram, that I know in person, how they stay on top of all this stuff. Because I have a full-time job, and I think some of them might too. How the hell do they consume everything and stay caught up on everything? I mean, is there an app that I'm missing on that kind of tells you, you need to read this book before the sequel comes out, and you've only got this many days left to do it, and you've got to watch these 2 movies because there's going to be a third one coming out, and you're not caught up, or whatever. I mean, is there a tool that I don't know about that to help people stay caught up on all this shit? Because I sure as hell don't know what it is. For instance, I've got this book. This is just the first volume. And when I say I think there's 4 books in here, the first 4 books of The Black Company are in here in this one volume. And there's something like 10 total books, which I do have the other ones. But I've got to get through this and start on the other ones because they're making a TV series out of this with Elijah Dushku playing the female lead, who I'm sure you all know who Elijah Dushku is, but I mean, she was the star of Dollhouse, and I think she was in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Not the episodes I saw, maybe later. I believe she was in that. So she's perfect for the lead in this series. And this is going to be, if you don't know anything about The Black Company, it's another fantasy series. It'll be right along the lines of your Game of Thrones, Middle-earth, The Witcher, which we're going to get to in a minute. It's right along those lines. But I want to consume this so that when I watch the series, I know what the hell's going on, and I already have some preconceived notions in my mind of how well they're, to judge it by, to be able to say, yes, they're doing a good job, or no, they're doing a crappy job of it, and here's why, or whatever. I want to be able to do that. So that's just one example, and I've got a stack of books by my bedside. Here's another one. I haven't even started this one. This is Dan Brown's latest book, Origin, and for those that don't know, he's the guy who wrote the Da Vinci Code. You can see that on there. And I've read all of his books. Some good, some not so good, but I've read them all because I like to be a completionist. But that's just books. That isn't talking about games and everything else. So, how do you guys do it? Do you guys stay on top of all this stuff? Do you guys stay caught up and watch every single superhero movie that comes out and every CW series? The Arrow and the Flash and Supergirl. Are you guys caught up on all this shit? Is that even possible? And then so anyway, and that of course that doesn't even get into new music when it comes out. That has to be consumed too. So you got all that stuff, but. So please, feedback on that would be great, on if there's some magic trick that I don't know about on staying caught up on stuff. But I've got my list here from Comic-Con. We're going to blast through this. The ones that I'm really looking forward to. Number 1, The Witcher. Period. That's it. When they first cast Cavill as Geralt, I had my... what's the right word I want to use here? I had my concerns. But from what I saw in the trailer, and he wasn't in the trailer a whole lot, but what I did see, I think he's going to capture the personality and the intensity and all that. I think he's going to capture all of that of Geralt. The only thing that kind of threw me a little bit is, and this is just a minor little gripe, but I really do believe he's just too frickin' buff for Geralt of Rivia. From the games, Geralt was fit and strong and all that, but Henry Cavill is a monster. He's like a bodybuilder type buff, And I don't know that when you're talking about Geralt, I think of agility. And when a guy gets, or a girl, either way, when a person gets too buff, I think they lose a certain amount of agility. They just can't move as well because they're too bulky. So that's a gripe of mine. I think that he's just a little bit too jacked, for lack of a better term. So anyway, but the rest of it looked very good. It looked like it's going to be very well done. Excuse me. Just getting over a little bit of a cold here. So, get a little water here. So, my next one that I was really intrigued by, and I don't know anything about this franchise, is His Dark Materials. the trailer looked very good, and it's kind of hard to follow if you don't know anything about the series or whatever, but I got the gist of it, and it looks intriguing as hell. I mean, I really want to watch it. I want to get into the story and find out the whole story behind it, all that. So that's the second one. The third one that I didn't think I was even going to be interested in the least was the Watchmen trailer. I never saw the movie with the big blue guy. I never saw the movie. Don't know anything about that franchise. But seeing this trailer, it made a lot more sense. The story made a lot more sense, and why they're all wearing masks and everything. And that one kind of looks really damn good, actually. So, Westworld, I'm torn on Westworld. I saw season 1 of Westworld was amazing. I binge watched the shit out of that. The second season, I didn't even finish it. And I'm not alone, I guess, because for everything I read, everybody was so damn confused. I was trying to figure out, okay, who's real and who's a bot, and I'm generally pretty good at that, following a storyline, following characters and all that. But I was confused as hell, and it just kind of turned me off. And I was like, I never got back into the mood of wanting to have to work that hard to follow what was going on. I just kind of wanted to watch series where I could just sit and just consume the content, enjoy it, without having to really focus in and go, okay, now that guy is it, and do all that. I'm sure at some point I would get in the mood to finish that season. And now season 3, of course, now I'm going to be behind, back to my original point. So, so that one I'm torn on. The Dark Crystal, I haven't seen the original Dark Crystal since it came out back in, was that the late 70s or was it the early 80s? I can't even remember. But, so I don't even really have a lot of memory of it. I remember the characters and everything like that, but I don't remember a lot of it. I'm going to have to watch it again. I do own it. I bought it on Blu-ray because I do have my collection of my fantasy movies. Excalibur, Conan the Barbarian, The Dark Crystal. I've got a whole collection because I wanted to be able to, if I do want to sit down and watch a franchise, I've got them, So I am intrigued by The Dark Crystal. One of the ones that I'm not real thrilled about, based on what I saw, was Terminator, Dark Fate. I don't know why it's not grabbing me, It seemed like a lot of regurgitation, and it could just be the fault of the trailer, the material that's been shown. Perhaps it'll be better than that, but it just didn't grab me. And then Picard did not grab me only because, and here's where I'm going to fall on my sword here, I never watched Star Trek The Next Generation. I watched all of the original series. I watched a couple episodes of Next Generation, and then other things in life took up time and everything else, and by the time I had even started watching a couple episodes, the whole series was done. So I had all of that. If I really wanted to get into it, I'd have to watch all of that. And so it looked well done, obviously, but I don't know enough of the Next Generation story and Picard's story to give any judgment on it or to be excited about it or whatnot. I guess I have to go back and watch however many goddamn episodes there are of Next Generation just to get caught up before I can watch this movie. Back to my original point, I don't know. And then, so no judgment on Picard at all. I don't have anything to base it off of. So, and then let's get to Phase 4 for the MCU. it's been taking some criticism I've seen, and I'm in the other camp, because everything that I saw, it looks to me like a lot of origin stories, and I am a sucker for origin stories. Take Wonder Woman as an example. I loved that they showed, the island, how she became Wonder Woman, all that. I want to know all the backstory for my heroes and my villains. That gets me into the character. So any of this stuff that's in this Phase 4, there's the Scarlet Witch. I think that's going to be, to me, that looks like it's got an origin story. At least I hope so. And the Black Widow's got to be an origin story, because, spoilers, she's dead. So, in the current, iteration. So, that's got to be an origin story, right? Unless I'm missing something. There was a lot of stuff that was intriguing to me. I do love the idea of having everything having continuity. Love that word. Continuity amongst all of the franchises in the MCU. And tying everything together. Love that too. Love the origin stories, and I love the continuity. So, this is all right up my alley. I am caught up on all the MCU. So I've seen every film. I'm all caught up on that. I've managed to do that, at least. I'm not caught up on all the CW superheroes, like Arrow and The Flash and Supergirl, and now there's going to be some more stuff that's going to be coming out, on more streaming services and so forth, and it's just going to get harder and harder to keep caught up on everything. It's that pesky day job that kills me, So anyway, that's where I'm at from what I saw from Comic-Con. I'd love to hear what you guys are excited about. If I'm off base on anything, correct me. Whatever. Everything's fair game, of course. Do what you got to do. Now let's talk about my Rutger Hauer story real quick. So, as you know, like I said, we lost him. He's 75 years old. He died a couple days ago, I guess. And my story was that it was when the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer was being shot. They shot some of it on the back lot at Universal Studios. We had an area called Spartacus Square, where the original movie Spartacus, going way back Kirk Douglas days, was shot, and that Spartacus area is kept. They keep it there to use for different movies and so forth, and they can dress it differently or whatnot. And they were doing something there for Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. And Rutger Hauer was a main character in that film. So, at the time, I was what we called a security supervisor. I had been a security officer, I'd promoted up, and now I was a security supervisor, just under what's called the watch commander. The watch commander is in charge of the whole shift. I was right under that, so I was like a lieutenant, let's say. And I get a call on the radio that at our transportation gate, there was, I was needed out there. They didn't go into a lot of detail. I said, can you get out to the transportation gate? I need you out here. I've got a little bit of a situation. So, it wasn't like an emergency type call or something, but it was just, can you get out here? I got something I need you to help me with. So I get out there, and I see a motorcycle with a guy, big guy, leather jacket, and he's leaning up against the motorcycle, against the seat of the motorcycle, just like that, just leaned up against it, calmly, And so I get there, and I call the security officer, and I go, hey, what's up? And he goes, yeah, this guy wants to bring the motorcycle on the property, and I've told him he can't do that, and he doesn't want to listen, and he asked if I could have my supervisor come out. And so now background is, at that time, we had a policy, the studio had a policy, no privately owned motorcycles on the lot. It was an insurance thing. Insurance didn't cover people getting hurt if they were on a motorcycle, a private motorcycle. Now, if they were using one for a movie, a scene, different story. But privately owned, just to drive through the lot, wasn't covered. Insurance didn't. So that was the strict rule. no motorcycles. So now I know the story, so I go over to this gentleman, and I go, "How you doing, sir?" I introduce myself, and tell him who I am, and I said, "How can I help you?" And he says, as calm as could be, Rutger Hauer says, "Well, my name is Rutger Hauer, and I am one of the main characters on that," and the transportation gate was not very far from Spartacus Square. You could see it. It was probably maybe 1.5 football fields away. And he goes, "I'm shooting right over there, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, on that set right over there, and I want to drive my motorcycle over there." And he wasn't a jerk about it. He wasn't irate. He wasn't anything. He was just very matter-of-factly, "That's who I am, and I want to drive my motorcycle over there." Now, we had a policy, a procedure, called SOP 24 at Universal, which was discretionary responsibility, which meant if it isn't in any other procedure or any other policy, the studio will let you use your discretion, common sense, and logic to try and make a decent decision. Great idea. So I used SOP 24, and I said I recognized who he was. I knew he was what's called, and I'm using a lot of lingo here, the movie lingo. He was what was called an above-the-line character. When you have a call sheet is every day for a production. For every production, there is what's called a call sheet, and it has every detail about the next day's production for that production listed on there. Who's going to be on set, what they need, whether it's craft services, security, electrical, whatever it is that they need, it will be on the call sheet, and it's the Bible for that day. I mean, everybody on that production will use that multiple times a day to refer to it to see if they've got what they need, etc. So there's a line in the middle of the front page, generally, and above that are what your above the line characters, meaning your star, your co-stars, and then maybe a couple other guest stars or something like that. And they will be above this big black line that goes across, and they're the above the line characters, meaning they're important. They've got to get to the set. So knowing that who he was and that he was an above-the-line character for the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I said, "Mr. Hauer, go ahead, drive your motorcycle over to the set." And that was it. He said, "Thank you very much," and he went on his way. They filmed the movie. No incident. He didn't crash. There was no problems. I went back, told the watchman, I'm like, "Hey, I had to use SOP 24. Rutger Hauer himself wanted to ride his motorcycle." Now, luckily, he was smart. He was at the transportation gate, which is right there by it. Had he been at the main gate, that would have been a little bit more of a problem, because he'd have to drive through the entire studio to get to the set, and that would have been a little bit more problematic, because had we allowed him and then an executive saw a motorcycle going down the road, they would be making phone calls and saying, "Why is there a motorcycle on the lot?" So he was smart and came to the transportation gate. It helped everything out. But anyway, that's basically what I wanted to get across was he was a nice guy. He was very matter of fact. I understood his logic. He's like, "Hey man, I can see the set from here. It isn't that far, and I just want to ride my motorcycle over there. Can I do it?" And it was not a problem. So anyway, whether that was worth hanging out to the end of this 24-minute video, I don't know. We'll see how many people made it all the way to the end. They can reference it in the comments if they want to. I think that's going to do it, guys, for this particular video, and we will catch you on the flip side.